Such a beautiful anthem by Pepper Choplin. Thank you, choir. Well, you can see I have been busy planning changes for your lives. Always a good idea at this time of year. About Boxing Day, I was in a grocery store, and there was still a magazine left out, I guess from before Christmas, and it said, "You can lose 30 pounds by New Year's." So I said to the clerk, "That's gonna hurt." We agreed. But we want to start with that. This is a time we hear all these messages about, this is the year for a new body, this is the year for a new year. So I put a scale here to represent that. I had good news. I stepped on the scale, well, not this one because it's still got its box, and I had lost 13 pounds in 48 hours. The bad news was I needed new batteries for my scale. I bought this one, and the bad news continued. The scale is so small, I can't see it from my height. That's a sign, isn't it? I thought so. I have a few images here of the things that both our spiritual traditions and our 21st century world invites us to reconsider as we think about reset in the season of Eastertide. It is beautifully already the time of forsythia in bloom. Now, if you go through James Bay, you'll see, especially ones facing south, I bet in Oak Bay too. So I put out here some trimmers, because as I was saying to Kelly, when I was little, we always had the slogan that when the forsythia was in bloom, yes, you have to finish pruning your roses. Is that what you were thinking too? So I brought that as a little haunting reminder, and also one of these great gizmos that becomes a shovel, and it's got all sorts of things in the handle in case you're ever stuck in traffic and you decide to jump out of your car and do some quick gardening on the boulevard. It could happen. So over here, I heard the other day on the CBC radio that it's good for us to learn a new language. So I put out here 2 French textbooks in case any of you want to buff up on your French, or maybe another language. I've heard Latin is lovely to refresh our memories. Although in the conversation around learning languages, they were saying too that there are apps now, and I don't know if they're free or not, that would help you learn indigenous languages. Is anybody doing that here or done that? So I'm not exactly sure how you would follow that, but I know that's one of the things the Healing Fund was funding, wasn't it? We'll have to follow out upon that. Over here, I have some options. Of course, I have booze. This is dry January. I had a friend who decided to stop drinking for dry January one New Year's Eve. He and the rest of the room decided to give it a whirl. And don't you know, when February 1st came along, he just forgot to start drinking again and never did. That's kind of the ultimate goal, I believe, of dry January. There's also something called damp January. Also, CBC, my source of most knowledge, they were saying that the whole point of that is to help us recalibrate, reset, and discover exactly how much we actually are consuming. So that's just a reminder. I have 2 water bottles, one yellow and one pink. I heard somebody say you're supposed to drink an ounce of water for every pound you weigh. This would be slimming, as you'll be up all night making little trips down the hall. And of course, weights, going back to gyms. This is the lucrative month if you're invested in fitness world. People join in January to try to reset their fitness goals because oftentimes after Christmas they're a little discouraged by trying to put their regular clothes on. I have some books at the front. I have Stuart McLean. Don't you just miss him? But that's part of the reset for us in winter is laughter. I've read these stories, I don't know how many times. I still laugh. In fact, sometimes I find myself smiling when I just read the title. I think, oh, I love this story. So inviting us to reset by inserting intentionally humor, Stuart McLean. We all have our own. We have distractionally reading at Tea at the Empress by our own Adina. And then I have in the middle Parker Palmer. His wonderful work is the one that the Women's Spirituality Group read, On the Brink of Everything. And if you haven't read it, we would all recommend that very strongly. I also have an iPad here. It's turned off, but that's for all the other reading that's available to us. The courses online that are free, we talk about that often. So one of the resets may be to turn off the mindless news and celebrity stuff that comes to us on the channels and find yourself something stimulating and interesting, often free, from universities all around the world. Finally, tragically, I have a suitcase. One of the things that we thought would happen after COVID is we'd be back traveling, right? We said, oh, can't wait. Now the people waiting 12 hours on the tarmac also feel like they can't wait. Big changes. This is a discussion that's going on around the world, the impact of global warming on the travel industry, on our own expectations, the impacts of shortages, etc. But just one of those resets that we've had to make even after COVID is what's it going to look like to be a traveler again? How do we reset our expectations? And so all of these, I hope that there's something in this collection you can, also, of course, getting more walks in. We've got to walk more, right? Haven't we all agreed to that? Yeah. I hope there's some part of this story that you can relate to, because it feels that that's a big part of January in North America. What changes are you going to make? And you may decide to push the reset button on, I'm not going to make any changes. But some people, it is physical health. Some people, it's spiritual health. Some people, your relationships and emotions. I have right here a little tea light. I don't have any butane, but I have a tea light. There. How's your imagination? They last just a short time, sometimes longer than this, of course, but just a short time. And this is one of the wonderful tools for Reset 2023. I would encourage you most strongly to get some and give yourself a reset time every day to check in. How is it going? It may be none of these things that you're monitoring, but yes, once a day to check, giving a candle. Now you can have just a regular taper. Well, these ones burn for days, but you could have just a regular taper that lasts 20 minutes and put it there and just let it be a time to reflect and connect. And of course, the story we read today is a wonderful place of connection for us. When we need to recharge our spiritual battery, when we need to remember who God made us to be and how we repress that reset button in our spiritual lives, is to stop focusing on symptoms, but to go deep, deep to where God says, you are my beloved. Now, Jesus was 30 years old when he was baptized by John. There are so many theories about where Jesus was and what he was doing. Perhaps you've heard some of them, that he traveled to India, or that he was a working carpenter with his father, stepfather, whatever you call Joseph, in a carpenter shop, repairing the damage done in all those cities by the riots against the Roman overlords. We don't have a word about that. They're called the lost years. So suddenly Jesus shows up with a crowd of people. We don't know if he knew each one of them by name or if none of them knew each other, let alone him. This is part of the story that's left to our imaginations. We believe, according to legend, that John the Baptist was in fact related to Jesus. So that may be why he came to John that day. But we know that John was reminding them, those people that were his congregation, they came out of the city to be at his call, listen to his message, They were truly hungry for something that John was offering out there in the desert. And they came to push that button, to make a chance of starting anew. And John said to them, this chance is with God. This chance is with belonging. And when Jesus joined that group, he didn't do it. There's no recording in either of the stories of this baptism of Jesus saying, if you don't mind, I'll just go first now. Because actually, you're going to be amazed at what happens. Jesus was just one of them. Now, Jesus wasn't just one of them for him, he himself. He wasn't just one of the crowd for John the Baptist. He was one of the crowd for those people and for us. Because one of the huge points of this baptismal story is that Jesus went with us into those waters. Jesus went with us so that the words spoken to Jesus fall on us too. Like the water over his was the same water over theirs. And so they were there perhaps because they felt a need to change. We know that in large part Jesus was there because he knew they needed to hear his words, that he was going to start his ministry. For 30 years he'd been watching, blessed and planning. And so the words fall over him, fall over that original congregation, and over us. How's that for a reset? We come looking for an outside symptom fixer, and we find it is a spiritual malady that drinking fresh water won't address, although it'll be good for our bodies. That learning another language won't cure, although it'll be good for our brains. A spiritual need drove those people out to listen to John, seeking to press that button. And I believe a spiritual need drives us still today, 2,100 years later. So why was Jesus baptized? Of course, different traditions in theology have interpreted it differently. But in the 21st century, we're just being blessed by the wonderful gift of inclusion and belonging, experiencing forgiveness, experiencing belonging, experiencing connection with the other people on that journey that day, with each other, with Jesus, whose actions precipitated that beautiful benediction, "You are my beloved." And in some of the newest scriptures, they put capital B, beloved, like I have capital R, reverend, like a title. This is the beloved. And so we call ourselves the beloved community. Beautiful connection, experiencing the reality that we, in spite of all these symptoms we're trying to fix, we are deeply, deeply loved by the Holy One, by the Creator. We feel the water, however you imagine that, claiming us, calling us beloved, creating a space for us then with our little candles or our gardening or our walking, drinking water, being still, seeking community support as we make changes. It's all about, isn't it, being part of a community that affirms that love gives us an opportunity to affirm that we, in being loved, want to share that love and act on others. We can't breathe it in without breathing it out, without it being a reciprocal action. So our hope, our prayer here this morning, this Sunday morning, is that we will not only have a chance to affirm that we are loved, but then breathing out that all people are loved. And that with God's help, we can help others experience that love in small and large ways. So we experience baptism. And here's the thing. We're invited by John to step away from our regular lives, aren't we? Those people didn't work there. Their kids didn't learn a new craft out there where they were. John's inviting us out. And so we are invited out from our regular lives. And out here from the regular routine of our lives, we can see where we want to push that button and where we need to ask Sacred Spirit for help in making that happen, where we need to turn to the rest of the beloved community for support as we make changes that we believe will be a spiritual blessing. So out here, we look at the things that are only symptoms and go deeper. And in that depth, we find that the spiritual concerns have a spiritual solution. It involves the things that perhaps we already know about. The candle, taking time for meditation and prayer. The scripture, hearing the stories of how people have lived before us. Parker Palmer and all the other prophets and sages of our day, helping us figure it out in 2023. And so we come away concerned, of course, for the realities and the symptoms around us. But in this baptism of community, in this sacrament of belonging together, we are reminded at a core place that we have just encountered in that blessing from God, the Holy One. The Holy One has claimed us, loved us, and embraced us forever. This is the baptism of this day for us. May we rejoice and be glad in it. Amen.